acaban de revelar the new Montos. Not is a rumour, not is an speculation, not is a cadena of WhatsApp. The new quantities for the pensions of the IMSS and the ISSSTE ya foreign data aconus officially, and what we're going to show you in this video is going to surprise more than one. There are jubilados who are going to see a change positive important in their bolsillo, and there are others who need to take action immediately to not get left out of these benefits. If you're a jubilado in Mexico or have a family member who receives a pension, don't muevas de aquí, because this information values dinero real and llega direct to your vida cotidiana. Bienvenidos a Noticias IMSS, or your canal that all the jubilados of Mexico need to have in your list of favourites, because here we're never going to fail you with information false, exaggerated or irresponsible. We give you the facts, we explain them to you with clarity, and we tell you exactly what to do with that information. If it's the first time you visit us, subscribe now and tick the campanita so that you're always the first in knowing when. Algo important cambios in the world of the pensions in Mexico. And if ya is the family of Alert IMSO, gracias for being here once more. Today the topic is one of the most important that we have brought in a long time. Let's go straight to the point because the time's valuable and the information's urgent. In Mexico exist two grand systems of pensions for the travellers of the sector formal. By one end is the IMSS, which covers the workers of the sector private, and by the other end is the ISSSTE, which covers the workers of the sector service del Estado, as the see employees of the government federal, maestros, travelladas of institutions public, and many others. Ambos systems acaban to reveal updates in their Montos of pension, and although the two form part of the same strength of the government Mexican by improving the welfare of their jubilados, the cambios específicos in each one have characteristics distincto that is fundamentally intended for separation. Commencements with the IMSS. The Instituto Mexicano del Seguro Social has confirmed that the montos of the pensions minimas guarantees for 2026 has been updated, taking into account the increase accumulated to the salary minimum and the comportant behaviour of the inflation in the country. This means that the jubilados that se encuentra in the rang most basso of incomes, aquellos that receive the pension minimum guarantees are going to see an increase in their payment monthly. This increment is not identical for all because it depends on the regime behind which cotizoed carta travelar, ya say the ley of 1973 or the system of AFORE behind the ley of 1997. But in terms of general representation, a represent improvement real in the power acquisition of the jubilados most vulnerable of the system. For the jubilados of the IMSS, bar the regimen of the ley of the 73, is the regimen Antigo, the pension minimum guaranteed updated for 2026 represents an increase in percentile that books to compensate the deterioration accumulated of the peso franked to the cost of the businesses and services basics. If you've had ANIS receiving the same amount without seeing any adjustment, it's possible that in the next payments you start to notice a noticeable change. Diferencia. To recommend review your state of account banking on attention and compare the amount received with the one you received in the months anteriors. If the increment does not reflect in your pay, don't wait. Acude immediate to your subdelegation of the IMSS and solicit a clarification because you have right to receive the amount correct sin tomorrow. Now then, for the jubilados who were based under the scheme of the law of 1997 and the AFORE, the situation is different. In this case, the amount of the pension depends primarily on the saldo accumulated in the cuenta individual of cada travelar, and the adjustments of the government tend to have an impact more indirect. Sin embargo, are one element crucial that most of these jubilados discover. See, at the moment of jubilature, the saldo in your AFORE was sufficient to finance a pension that superanded the minimum guaranteed. The government has the obligation to complete the difference until you get to that minimum guaranteed. What that means is that even the workers with low saldos in their AFORE have the right to receive at least a minimum guaranteed pension, which is being set by the legislation over time. Manus la pension minimum, and yes, a minimum, acabas to be actualised for 2026. Si crease that you're not receiving the Monto correct, this is the moment to verify it. Pass them on now to the changes in the ISSSTE, because there's news equally important for the jubilados of this system, which in many cases don't receive the same attention mediatic as those of the IMSS, but that they also have direct that must know when exige. The Institute of Security and Services Socials for the Travelladors of the State have announced adjustments in their sanctions. Que siguen una logic similar to the IMSS, but with particularities propias of the system of the travelladors from the government. The jubilados of the ISSSTE, que sabe bajo the regime of the Décimo Transitorio, que is the equivalent to the regime antiguo of the IMSS, também verán actualizations in their Montos of pension for 2026. This group includes a muchos maestros jubilados and employees federales que se retiraron hace years, and a travelladors of diversas institutions governmentals que optan for mantenerse in the system. Antiguo quienes hicieron las reformas. For this group, the monto of the pension is indexed to factors similar to those of the IMSS, and the adjustments announced for 2026 represent a megara concrete, although in many cases todavía insufficient frente a the cost of living actual. For the jubilados of the ISSSTE that are subject to the new system of Pensionnissste that functions to money similar to the AFORE of the IMSS, también hay novelties relevant. The actualizations in the tasas of rendimiento and in the parameters of calculo of pensions that are being implemented in 2026 can have an impact positive in the months that will receive quienes jubilaen in the proximus months by this scheme. If you're proximate to jubilate you and you have your cuenta in Pensionnissste, this is the moment to solicitate a projection updated of your pension to say exactly what you're going to receive with the new parameters vigent in 2026. There's a TIM that affects both jubilados of the IMSS and of the ISSSTE, and which we want to address with all clarity because it's generating confusion. Mucha confusion. In redes sociales and in groups of messagery have circulated tables and Cifras specific that supposedly muestra the new Montos exact of the pensions actualised for 2026. A lot of those Cifras are real and correspond to documents officials, but muchas others are invented, están desactualized, or correspond to situations more specific that don't apply for the majority of the jubilados. Aren't as the emotionator or the preoccupier for a little cifra you saw in internet or the supposedly news you've seen? Enviaron por WhatsApp, verify sempre directly with the IMSS or the ISSSTE qual is the monto that corresponds to you specifically, because every case is different and depends of your history of cogitation, of your salary base, of your antiquity, and of many other factors individual. Otro point very important that we want to discuss in this video is the difference that exists between the Monto brut of a pension and the Monto net that effectively jigs to your bolsí. Muchos jubilados see confused when they see that the Monto announced in the seminars is actually much more. Actualizations don't coincide exactly with what they receive in their tarjeta or in their went count banky. It's pointed to Bursi of various reasons. In a cases, realised discounts by credits of the Infonavet or the Fobisti could to the via not unseen liquidated completely. In other cases, discounts by quotas syndicalis or por other compromises and queridos during the live laboral activa, and in a few cases, errors administratives that result in discounts incorrecto. If you notice that the monto that you receive is significantly menor al que debería corresponder según los nuevos parámetros anunciados, tienes derecho a solicitar un desglose detallado de todos los conceptos que integran tu pago y de todos los descuentos que se te están aplicando. Queremos también hablar de los jubilados que tienen pensiones de ambos sistemas, es decir, personas que trabajaron una parte de su vida en el sector privado, cotizando al IMSS, y otra parte en el sector público, cotizando al ISSSTE. Esta situación, aunque no es la más común, existe y genera dudas específicas sobre cómo se aplican los ajustes cuando hay derechos en los dos sistemas. En términos generales, cada sistema aplica sus propias actualizaciones de manera independiente y el jubilado tiene derecho a recibir los beneficios actuales de cada uno por separado. Si estás en esta situación y tienes dudas sobre cómo se están calculando tus pensiones en cada sistema, te recomendamos acudir por separado a cada institución para verificar que ambos pagos están siendo procesados correctamente with los nuevos montos de 2026. An aspect that most jubilados pass overall, but could probably represent dinero additional important, son the retroactivities. When the IMSS or the ISSSTE update their months of pension, in some cases that update takes effect retroactive, which means that if the adjustment should have been applied from an earlier date and wasn't, the institution has the obligation to pay you the difference accumulated from that date. Not all adjustments have a component retroactive, but some do. And in those cases, the jubilateds can receive payments additional that cover months or even years of differences accumulated. To save if in your case applies some retroactivity, needs to review your papers with detail. And in many cases, it's convenient to consult with a specialist in directive security social that can orient you, significantly costing you cover. Para cerrar este video con información práctico y accionable, queremos darte los pasos concretos que debes seguir esta semana. Primero, identify claramente si tu pensión es del IMSS o del ISSSTE or of ambos, and below what regime you are registered. Second, review your next payment and compare the Monto with the one you received the last month to identify if Senior SA applied the actualization of 2026. Third, if you have doubts about whether your Monto is correct, accuse to the institution corresponding with your identification and your credential of jubilated to solicit a revision of your expenditure. Fourth, don't give money to any intermediary that promises to guarantee your pension of. Conseguirte pagos adicionales a cambio de una comisión por adelantado. And quinto, compart this information with other jubilados that you know, because many of them don't have access to these channels of information and need to know what is happening with their directions. This has been all for the video today, here in Alerta IMS OI. Como sempre, our compromise is trying you information real, clear and useful so that you can make the best decisions about your pension and your well-being. If this video helped you, give it a like, share it with all your contacts jubilados and subscribe to the channel to not miss any important update information. We'll see you very soon with more news about the IMSS, the ISSSTE and everything you need to know as a jubilado in Mexico. Hasta pronto en Noticias IMSS Hoy and cuídate mucho.